Good morning, everyone. Welcome to IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Texas homer, Paul Wadlington. It's the Tuesday show. The topics for today will be NFL poaching will continue because of the structure and the environment that's been created around it. The death of the bagman. And the question is, did the bagman die, Paul, or did we all become bagmen?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And then we're going to look at the Texas coaching salaries. Everyone gets a raise consistently, it seems like every year. So we'll talk about that structure. If we have extra time at the end, we'll do a little fun stuff with logos. If we do not have time, then we will not do it. That simple. Paul, let us begin. Let's talk about the NFL poaching. Why, in your humble opinion, is NFL assistant coaching job looking like an easier way of life, frankly, than the college coaching position jobs?
Two reasons. They have an off season and they don't have to recruit. And recruiting used to mean, do I want to deal with high school guys? Do I want to have, no, now recruiting means, do I want to do high school recruiting? Mm-hmm. Do I want to do portal recruiting? Mm-hmm. And then do I want to constantly re-recruit my own roster? Because the group of guys that were 5 stars and the talk of the town and everyone's going to be famous and they thought they're going to come into the University of Texas and start as true freshmen. Now they're sad and they're not feeling courted and they're not feeling wanted and they're not getting daily text love. They're actually at school. They're sad because they go out on their 3rd team on the scout team. But suddenly the Missouri Tigers,
I was going to say Oregon,
and Oregon Ducks are sending them little love notes saying, we ain't forgot about you. I can't believe Texas is treating you this way. And suddenly you as a coach have to re-recruit these guys, even already on the roster, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. And it just never stops. It's not a seasonal sport. It's a yearly sport. And you actually have the scenario where it's flipped. You know, NFL coaches used to shake their heads in envy at college coaches and their schedules because the NFL season was such a grind. And, you know, you had the I remember, you know, when college coaches would like get a golf day during the season. That is not a thing anymore. That does not happen. And increasingly, it looks like they're having to not just recruit high school kids, other colleges for the portal, but also their own roster constantly. So you never really get an off season. And then, of course, it used to be you had a shorter college season. You know, often you might play 12, 13 games maximum. And there was a big gap between your last game of the regular season and your bowl game a month later. During that month, you have 2 weeks off, right? 2 weeks of practice, 2 weeks off. No longer the case. You got to prep for the playoffs, man. And, you know, Texas, had they beaten Ohio State and then gone on to beat Notre Dame, which they would have, you're talking about a 17-game schedule, man. That's what the NFL plays for their regular season. So even that has eroded, that the schedule's prolonged. So you're starting effectively fall camp in earnest in late July, prepping for the kids to come in. And then you're going all the way through February. And then in February, it's all recruiting. So
and your coaches get poached.
And your coaches get poached. So yeah, it is now a preferable lifestyle to the NFL. And the truth is, if you're a blue collar guy and you're supporting your family and you're making $70K a year and you take a cut to $60K a year, you're going to feel that. No. If you're a college coach making $700K a year and you take a cut to $600K a year for the NFL, you don't appreciably feel that, right?
Yeah, hopefully you're not scope creeping that bad that you're going to feel it.
No,
right up to your $699.
Well, I mean, you know, a person who makes $1 million a year doesn't live appreciably differently from someone who makes $600,000 a year, right? The scale changes when you add a zero. Someone who makes $10 million a year, now you're living a little different. You're not flying business class; you're flying private.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you can't. The wins are all fleeting, so you get that. You don't even get the signing day wins anymore. Say you get like you said, you win that high school recruitment, big name, high fives, everyone in the boardroom, super excited. It doesn't matter. They've signed a 1-year contract. You're going to have to wait until spring again. they're going to come back to the table in spring. You have to win that player's recruitment minimum 3 times.
Yeah.
And that's got to feel tiring, especially too when you're on the field coaching them hard. In the back of your mind, it's like, am I creating resentment? There's all these weird, psychological factors that I don't think are beneficial at all. And so it's like, that's the tricky part where it doesn't seem like you can win. It seems like everything's cyclical. There's no finality. And then you have the NFL knock, and you're dealing with contract players in the NFL too, right?
If you hear any noise in the background,
it's a squeaky toy. I thought it was a bird.
A 14-year-old golden doodle has decided that she is going to have a puppyhood. She's dancing around, and then she's periodically putting the toy on me and squeaking it, and then hitting me with it.
Yeah.
So my apologies. No chickens are being tortured or anything like that.
Good.
Yeah. Hey, the crazy thing is, it used to be the old saw was your coach was super nice to you, and then the minute you showed up for fall practice, they're like, we got your ass now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
All the stuff we did before, that's all gone.
You thought you were starting. You thought you were starting. You thought.
We're not starting. You're going to be talked to different. No one wants to hear anything. Be quiet. Show up. And now you at any point, a player can just be like, I'm out of here. And people are like, oh, but the portal. Anyone who challenges the portal will find a victory because the NCAA can't enforce any of this stuff. Yeah. These are all suggestions.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's just going to have to end up being a change. But it seems the NFL seems way better. It's not even like it's close. That's the tricky part too.
The NFL, people always talk about college free agency, the portal. The NFL has actual free agency. You can't just leave in March after you sign your 4-year deal. You can't just be like, I'm sad. I'm going to the Chargers. It's like, no, you're on contract, dude. And if you don't show up to practice, we fine your ass. So, the NFL it's professionalized football, and college is semi-professionalized. You've got all the downsides of professional with none of the upsides.
Yeah. I don't know what you do. All right. Now, speaking of the fun part, the recruiting part, the death of the bagman. Mm-hmm. Like I said, is it the death of the bagman, or is everyone a bagman now?
Wow.
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And so what was a bagman? We all know the mystery, and everyone was accused of having a bagman. Not your team, but everyone else's team had one.
That's right.
What is a bagman?
A bagman is a guy who is a transactor of services, and they're the dedicated 1 or 2 guys on your staff who basically drop bags. They pay recruits. And not long ago, long ago, Connor, like 4 years ago, this was a permanent fixture of college football. You had individual guys on your staff who it was known their job was to handle the unseemly aspects of recruitment. And often these guys were not particularly good recruiters or even particularly good coaches. They didn't really know football, but they excelled at that aspect. And a lot of those guys, you would see the services rank them as the best recruiters in America, right? They'd issue these lists. Yeah. Who are the best recruiters of America? And half the list would be bagmen, like dudes who just drop bags, and the services obviously have an interest in not exposing that fact because those bagmen feed them info, but also, you don't want to they're not in the services don't exist for investigative reporting.
They're not upset the apple cart here.
Yeah. They're there to make the fans feel good. So these guys, the minute NIL started, their services were really not much required anymore. And suddenly you've seen a bunch of guys assistant names, if you guys think about that, you used to hear about all the time. So-and-so at Auburn, so-and-so at Tennessee, etc. So-and-so at A&M. They just sort of fell off the map. Now, some of them were actually good recruiters and also good coaches. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing just fine. But others have just disappeared. Some aren't even in football anymore. So it's been a very interesting transition. Now, are there still ways that you can be illicit? Yes, because NIL, you have to pay taxes on, right? So you could do something like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, a certain program did where they said it was all NIL to sign their all-time greatest college recruiting class.
Yeah.
But it turns out a lot of those may have been illicit payments that were not even reported, and they said it was NIL. However, if you do that long enough, you're going to be in trouble, right? And you're still, those recruits and that recruit's family are still getting, you're engaging in a felony. You're engaging in fraud.
It's money laundering.
Yeah. And so I was laughing because people were like, oh, but Oregon gives people Bitcoin. It's like, Bitcoin must be federally reported on your tax return. And if you don't do it, you're in a lot of trouble. And by the way, your Bitcoin is housed in something that has to report, like Coinbase.
Right.
So this idea that like, oh, he gave them some cryptocurrency. No one, it's got crypto in it. Therefore, the government doesn't know about it. It's like, good luck with that, man.
It was crypto and it was poker chips.
That sounds like the Sovereign Citizen YouTube commercials, like, or YouTube things. You ever see the Sovereign Citizen?
Yeah, they're incredible. It's wonderful.
I am not driving. I am traveling.
I'm a traveler.
I am not Connor Moffat, the person. I'm Connor Moffat, the title.
Yeah.
I did not respond to this name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are my favorite guys.
They're they think there's like a magical technicality, like it's a spell.
They all believe that they say the right words, the cop has to be like, okay,
this
guy's right. He's a sovereign citizen.
Well, my favorite one, when the sovereign guys, they do all that, and then a cop,
and then they get their windshield.
Well, the funniest part is then a cop kicks their ass and they get like $600,000 from the city. It seems like if you don't have a job, man, it seems like that's a good way to get like $600,000 from the city, because the cops do eventually get very annoyed with it. It's funny, but so the bagman doesn't exist anymore. The unscrupulous side of it has been disincentivized. So are we in a more transactional phase? Do relationships not matter? Is NIL just, like I said, is NIL everyone's a bagman now? And you can just go in like the NFL and we're going to pay you X rate and then this person's going to pay you more. How does that change the relationships? We're still human beings. I think surprisingly relationships are still going to matter.
Yeah. I mean, so I think people are like, oh, it's all just a bidding war now. No, that's not true. Your relationships still matter. These are still young men who want to go to a place where they feel like their talents are going to be properly utilized. These are still young men who still want to feel some connection to their coach, to a staff, to teammates around them. Like, that stuff matters. And they want to see that they're going to get developed. The best commercial that Sark has is not that Texas has a lot of NIL, which we do. The best commercial Sark has is what's happening right now during the NFL Combine.
He was literally on the combine. He was
literally on the combine talking about, hey, you come here, you're going to get developed. And hey, you think your real payday is $400,000 as a junior in college. Your real payday is in the NFL, because once you get NFL money, once you sign that second contract, once you get 4 years in the league and you get lifetime health insurance, once you do 4 years in the league and you get a lifetime pension, that's the real payoff. So I think that's something that Texas is going to sell. And also, this is a good place to be. So you still have to sell guys their fit in the offense or the defense. You've still got to sell the relationship. So I was a little concerned about the Dwayne Akina hire insofar as recruiting. My understanding is he's not going to be doing much recruiting. You can get away with that with a guy or two on your staff. You can't have 6 guys on your staff who are just developers and can't recruit at all, even with NIL.
Yeah.
You have, I mean, you could say, well, you could have an assistant do some texting, like some GA. It's like, hey, dude, the player understands the GA is a GA. Like, that's not the same quality of relationship. So I think that relationships still do matter. But the truth is, if someone's offering $800K and you're offering $400K,
right, that's where it matters. You're
in a lot of trouble. Yeah. But if you're within a $100,000, they'll pick the school they prefer.
And you know that your school can get them out in 3 years. The other one's going to get them out in 4. They're going to get to the millions faster taking your route. That's the interesting part too. And the self-narrative, right? No one wants to tell themselves like, I am only here on behalf of money. Of course, they want to tell themselves that I am here because of relationships and things. The money helps, but if they're not just going to tell themselves I'm a cold calculated.
Yeah, I mean, some guys are very comfortable saying I'm just here for the money, and they'll be on their third school by their third year.
Well,
right?
you can tell who they are by how many times they've been in the portal generally.
But the truth is that sort of dummy is a self-selection because they never pan anyway. So they did you a favor.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I'm not concerned about those dudes. Not me. Offer me $50 more and I'm gone.
No, 50 cents more.
50 cents more.
Gone. Yeah.
I like that.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are parallels here to the professional world, right? Because people are like, well, only the schools with the most NIL are going to be good. And it's like, well, if that were true, we would only have, I mean, IBM would still be the most relevant computer company in the world, right?
Good pool.
There is such a thing as competition and a sense of energy. There are people, I mean, me included, I'd go work at a young, fun, vital startup for less money over an established place if I thought that there was a trajectory, right? So it's about being sold on the vision. A lot of that stuff matters. But you got the Ben G's of the world. You give him 50 cents more, he's out. But I get it. I respect it.
All right, guys, before we keep going, let's hear from Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Days like this, the anticipation's half the fun. The call to adventure. Possibilities in every direction.
Look at that.
The stories you'll bring back. Even the true ones. And already, you can't wait until next time. From first catch to biggest catch of the season, this is where it starts. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.
All right, Neil Brown.
Well, hey, real quick on that, just timely to finish off what we did. By the way, Ian does this to me every time I host the deep dive, so I'm doing it to you now. It feels great. When you want to transition, I just take it back. Wait a minute. Arch Manning just signed a real NIL deal with Uber. And that's the other part of NIL that's important, particularly with Texas and Austin being such a cool city. All the tech companies moving here, all the tech bros moving here, industry relocating here. There's NIL, which is sort of like, hey, here's some money, come to Texas. We'll figure it out later. You go do some personal appearances at a hospital.
Yeah.
And there's real NIL, like, hey, Uber wants to give you X amount of money over 3 years for you to say, I'm Arch Manning and I love Uber.
Yep.
Texas has access to real NIL in ways that I would argue maybe no other program has. And that's going to be increasingly huge because if you're really a big time recruit and you're kind of telegenic and charismatic, brands want to associate with you. And so it's not about what Texas can give you. It's about what Texas can set you up, and being a Longhorn and being in Austin, Texas can set you up with. So it's not just the local funeral home like in Norman, Oklahoma, right? It's about like Tesla would like to sponsor Matthew Golden. And that's a pretty cool opportunity. So, I mean, the fact is, I don't know what Arch is making off that, but I don't think it's like $500 and free meals.
Cooper Manning, he was doing an interview. I can't remember which one I watched. I watched a lot of his stuff. He's just such a reasonable, that family gets it, man. And they were talking about NIL. What are you going to do with Arch? And he was like, it just has to be strategic. We're not going to, like you said, we're not doing the local funeral home that will scare off larger brands from us. And so it's all hyper strategic. They're not taking any small fish because they know that can scare off big fish. And so now you're seeing Red Bull. They did a whole shoot with Red Bull. Elsie did a good video with the photographer of that shoot. They're just taking big names. And then the whole thing was planned, right? Like this is the difference between like local NIL and professional. Arch does the Red Bull deal. He happens to get the ESPN interview right after it, wearing the Red Bull hat. Like that's a PR firm. Like there's a team working on these rollouts and maximizing them. So that's the difference. It's not just like you're popping up with a brand that you can tell when things are planned that efficiently and that effectively that there's a group of professionals saying, hey, let's make sure we maximize our rollouts. And that's
the sponsor is perfectly calibrated to a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Red Bull, Uber. Yeah. We're talking about a Friday night.
Yep.
It's like, hey, you just finished your test on Friday. Let's have a couple of Red Bulls, rally, jump in an Uber and go down to 4th Street, right?
And then you get the whole family involved, right? Granddad, dad, and the ad. So it's like,
yep.
It's and it's super brand safe. Like you're gonna get a funny family They're all sharp, but they're all very buttoned up polos and khakis too. So it's not like there's not going to be some brand wrist like Cooper Manning.
To that point, I think our
Doug
chat,
Exeter.
Rex St. Charles, has a good suggestion.
Yeah, I doubt that.
Do they still have taboo lingerie at Austin?
I have no idea.
Like the strip malls? It used to be like right next door to a Chinese buffet. There'd be.
I never saw them.
Oh,
I graduated like 20.
good answer, Connor.
Yeah,
good job.
I hung out mostly around the churches, so I didn't see that kind of stuff.
This is what happens when you're married to a Latina. You're like, taboo lingerie. I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course not.
Connor's looking not to get stabbed.
This is why I think we should have a good shot at Chris Henry Jr. in the era of rev sharing. NIL from Columbus, Ohio, or NIL from Austin, Texas. I mean, why not both? But Columbus, they do a good job at Ohio State too, man. Because remember, Smith was signed with the Red Bull deal with Arch. It was an Arch and Smith deal. So it's like those guys, those big national brands, like they'll find you. It doesn't matter where you're at. Now, if you're local, if you're just doing local NIL, you want to choose Austin because there's more things. But if you're a big dog, they'll find you. Yes, I am married to a Latina. And it's great. It's hard for me to believe that Coach Aquina would not be recruiting. My view of him is that he would want at least some control of deciding what DBs play for Texas.
So we're not talking about recruiting the noun. We're talking about recruiting the verb.
Yeah.
Meaning Dwayne Aquina is not sitting there texting 9 different guys for 2 hours every night. That's not going to be a thing. He'll watch the film and say, I like this guy. I don't like this guy. I like this guy. I don't like this guy. Obviously, meet people at junior days. But the point is, he's not going to be out pounding the road.
Yeah, he's going to be giving marching orders. But yeah, he won't. I mean, maybe in the helicopter. The helicopter's pretty cool. That would sound fun.
Do we have a dedicated helicopter? Or
I don't know if it's dedicated, but I know that we break it out sometimes with Sark, and it's nice to go visit the 5 stars in a helicopter. And football fields are conducive to landing helicopters. So,
and making the best possible entrance.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome.
How far are we from autonomous driving helicopters?
I don't know. Talk to old boy, old Musk,
my friend Elon.
Yeah, holler at him. But yeah, it's cool when they break out the helicopters, show up to that 5 star that's on the fence, just like, hey, this is pretty neat, huh? All right, Neil Brown. He hath joined the staff. Yesterday, we heard that we were in the mix. Eric was telling us that he'd been following that for a couple days, and that we thought he would come this morning. Anwar of Orange Blood said that Neil Brown has officially joined. So we have that. What do you think about that hire? I think it's great. Anytime you get a head coach, man, and like an analyst role, I think it's awesome, man. That's the Saban method, right?
It is. Yeah, it's funny. I was seeing people scoff at this. He's like, well, you got fired at West Virginia. Well, those are the head coaches available.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning's not available for the assistant role because he's successful at Oregon.
That's how you get head coaches on your staff.
That's how you get coaches who get fired. And so the people are like, well, he got fired, so he's useless. It's like, no. So what he's going to offer is a head coach's eyes to your program without the pressure and the involvement and engagement in the day-to-day. So he has the chance to sit back and just sort of watch and go, oh, okay, hey, Sark, I noticed this, because he's not involved and engaged in the day-to-day. It's one of the things, like if you ever train someone, I used to train salespeople when I was a manager, and it was hilarious to go on a sales call and not be the one talking, and you just get to sit back and watch the interaction. Like, I'll never forget, I had a salesperson who was like, I was in biotech, and he was like, this doctor, he's so hard to talk to. You can't relate to him. And this doctor, we were standing in his office trying to talk to him, and he had a 9-foot marlin on his wall.
Yeah, there's your in, right?
And so I said, so you like fishing? Yeah. And the doctor says, come in, shuts the door, and we talk to the doctor for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And the salesperson was like, you're so good at this. And I was like, there was a 9-foot marlin on the wall.
Yeah, right.
So the point is, Neil Brown will see the 9-foot marlin on the wall. because Sark is so engaged in the day-to-day that he can't possibly sometimes see the big fish on the wall. And that's what Neil Brown does. Also, if you guys don't know about Neil Brown, he got his start under Hal Mummy. So that's a very much an outside the box thinker. When he was the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech for Tuberville, they had the fastest offense in the country. Their goal was to line up every 8 seconds and run a play.
Yeah, it was crazy.
At Troy, super successful, like completely built that program from zero. And that's how he got the West Virginia job. And then at West Virginia, because of personnel constraints, and West Virginia, not an easy place to recruit to, they went to sort of a run-heavy quarterback run, throw it deep offense. And so he's got flexibility. He's got interesting insights on all of that. And guess what? He's another guy who's recruited in other parts of the country. He might have some ins that we don't have as a coaching staff at JUCOs or other schools. He may even have some insights on, potential portal schools that were near West Virginia that they always went and raided. So yeah, this is anytime you can get a guy who's a pretty good quality coach like Neil Brown on your staff just for a year to kind of look and sit back without the pressure and just identify the obvious things that you need to be doing. It's always very helpful.
Yeah, they went from at Tech to like 65% passing offense to Troy, which was about a 50-50 split.
Yep.
To West Virginia, which was like 60% run. So he's gone from he's had the whole range, which to me seems like he's a pragmatist, which I appreciate. So it's like it seems like he's not married ideologically to a single scheme. He'll just, hey, what do I got? And I can coach football. I can coach football. I don't just coach a system.
I think Blake Bryant nails it in the chat. He says some people can't differentiate the role from head coach to assistant, and that's exactly right.
Yeah.
There's a reason Neil Brown was a head coach, and it's not because he's terrible or lacks insight. By the way, he was 36-35 at West Virginia, and the real change of college football is that West Virginia used to be considered an okay job. Man, it's not a very good job anymore.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a natural recruiting base in the state of West Virginia. And you're not a better option than the other schools that are next to you, where you have to go next door to get recruiting, right? It's just tough, man. That's a really tough job. And it used to be a job where you could run sort of a different kind of system, Rich Rod, and you could win games there. But notice the fall off from West Virginia football when they went from the Big East to the Big 12, right? It was a big fall off. And then when NIL entered the fray, it's just not a great job anymore. And it used to be an okay job, right? Yeah,
it's and it's like it's became that school where it's quarterback dependent. You get some legendary quarterback there, then you're gonna be a big deal. But that's as much luck as it is skill.
Yeah, but that's sort of, we could just throw that out for any school, right?
Right. Well, it's like when you're in that low tier, it's like you have to wait for a great one. And that's not a good planning metric, to be like, we're just going to have to find a transcendent quarterback that no one saw in high school. And
guess what, Connor? You have your big breakout year, as Neil Brown did 2 years ago when everyone was like, he's going to finish dead last in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And they won like 9 games, right? And it was a big deal. All those guys left, devastated by the portal and by graduation. And then this year's West Virginia team, just not very good, not very talented. So
yeah, it did show fight because I remember that it was Dead Man Walking. And I remember him at Big 12 Media Days. So he was like, y'all don't know what we have. I remember like him as specifically saying that we have a better team than y'all think. It seemed West Virginia wanted to fire Coach Brown for years. He led their team to the 9-4, which was a great season. They did lose 7 games in 2024, but most were to ranked teams. Well, and I think what's underrated too, people, it's important to have an adversarial mindset join a team, an attacking mindset. It matters. You become so entrenched in your own culture and thinking from the perspective of the Texas Longhorns. It's good to have like in the hacking world, there's the red team and the blue team. The red team's job is to go on offense and break whatever the blue team created. So you want like this red team thinking. And I think when you bring in new coaches like that, they're going to break the status quo, whatever the consensus is. They're going to be like, yeah, but I would play you like this. Yeah, your tendency is this. Hey, the coaches that you don't know, but the coaches say this about the offense. that stuff I think is also really important to bring in someone who's not of the culture yet. Now they'll end up molding into it, so you got to get the information early. But I like when coaches can say, like, this is how I would play you.
Well, they're really victims of their history, because West Virginia used to be a pretty good winning football team, and playing in the Big East helped a lot in that regard. And then they moved to a different conference, and suddenly it's a very different reality week to week. And at the same time, their natural, dude, there's not a lot of, it's amazing that Randy Moss is from West Virginia. It's the funniest thing in the world, because it has people thinking like, oh, West Virginia is full of talent. It's like, dude, there's individual districts in Texas football with significantly more talent than the entire state of West Virginia.
Yeah.
There's 5A districts with more talent than
Who's their biggest base? Who do they end up going to the most? Was it they're getting like 3 stars out of Texas because the Big 12? Are they going to Pennsylvania? Where do they end up? I'd have to look where they end up.
Bunch of JUCOs and just random dudes, developmental guys, like from random places.
But I do like it seems like West Virginia is always able to have a player or two, though, man. Like that's what I like. They always have like some DT that you're like, some guard or something like that. So that's what's interesting. They'll always have a couple dudes, but it's hard to keep those guys now. I think Ian was saying on last night's show that like it used to be like West Virginia would have these pro players, but now, I guess he said like Miami will show up and be like, that's my defensive tackle.
Well, yeah. Did you happen to see how Isaiah Nayor tested in the combine?
Dude, yeah, freaky numbers. So
he wasn't staying at Wyoming.
Right.
Texas did a great job scouting him. He has the misfortune of blowing out his knee here.
Yeah, it sucks.
And then by the time he hits his third school, people realize, okay, this is a dude at Nebraska. Yeah. But Wyoming, man, hat tip to those guys. They did an amazing job of identifying him. Mm-hmm. And how long did they hold on to him? They got 1 great year out of him, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
That's just the new reality of college football.
Nair's going to be one of my bigger what ifs. Because he tested crazy, like 11th of 3,000 wide receivers in the draft on their relative athletic score.
If you're 6'4", 220, running a 4.40 with long ass arms like a freaking NFL defensive end,
and he's productive.
Like yeah. It honestly, his lack of production relatively at Nebraska makes me wonder about that quarterback, the little Mahomes clone. I think that's going to be interesting. I'd cancel spring practice too.
I think they need it.
They need it. They can't be poached.
Y'all aren't getting playoff practices.
That's right.
So, all right, Paul, tell the people about the one and only Gabe Winslow.
You know what? I don't feel like doing what you want to do, man. But I'm going to do it anyway because this guy delivers such amazing service for the Longhorns that call in and for their friends. Hey, man, this guy even works with Aggies. That's how good a dude he is. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. Why would you want to reach him? Because you want to buy a house or you want to refi your house. This is the guy. Go read his Google reviews. He gets amazing comments when we post his stuff on the Inside Texas Forum. I have had reams of satisfied customers reach out to me and tell me the incredibly complex problem that he solved that no other mortgage guy could solve. And even if you have just a very straightforward deal, this is the guy you want to call. Why? Because he's going to help you shop to 70 other potential lenders. He is not just limited. He doesn't just work for Chase or Wells Fargo or one of these big banks who doesn't give 2 flips about you. He's a guy that wants to be a part of helping you get the biggest, most important purchase of your life, your home. Give him a call, 832-557-1095, and tell him that we sent you.
Tell him Homer sent you, not Paul. Just Homer.
Tell him Homer sent you, not Paul.
Yeah. All right, let's talk money, Paul. Our coaches have been getting raises. And it makes sense, right? Becton, we had to stave off of the NFL for Becton. Then you see our NFL combine numbers. They're like, Texas players are big and fast on average. And remember, we didn't have NFL players like 3 years ago, which is insane. And then
dude.
That's crazy, dude. Like that shouldn't even accidentally happen. Like
that's so embarrassing.
Dude, it was brutal, man.
And now we think double digits NFL guys are birthright.
Are the norm.
It's like, oh, that's unexceptional. That's unremarkable. In fact, that's now going to start. Watch, mark my words, Connor. that's going to start to be held against Sark. It's like Steve Sarkisian has had 36 NFL players drafted over the last 3 years.
He can't actually coach.
Texas cannot win the big one. You watch. That's going to be the new narrative. It's not going to be that Texas can't produce NFL players.
Well, that's how it goes. It was Sark. It's 7 wins Sark. Sark can't win 10 games. Sark wins 10 games.
He only wins 10 now.
Yeah. And then Sark can't win anything of importance. Sark wins the Big 12. Now it's Sark can't win the CFP game. He'll win that. Then if he loses in the championship, it'll be he can't win the championship. After that, then it will be he can't repeat. Then it'll be he can't three-peat.
It'll be he only won one, and that's because Arch Manning was amazing.
Well, it's because he has all this talent. It's like, talent that he recruited and developed. Like
people have all these pre-packaged cliches,
dude,
to explain away success. It's just hilarious.
All right, Milwee, who I'm surprised has not gone off into the distance to be an OC, man. Sounds like a loyal guy. He's getting $700,000 in 2025 and 2026. And he just signed a contract extension on the 26th.
You know, the great Chris Rock, the Greek philosopher Chris Rock, once said that a man is as loyal as his options.
Yeah. But I think he was the OC at Akron.
No, I take it all back.
Well, being an assistant quarterback coach is not even close to the caliber of being an OC, even if it's at Akron. So that's what makes me think that it's a loyalty. So I want to see him go. I want to see Sark's tree. Now I say that until he leaves, and then I'll be mad. But I do want to see Sark's tree start to expand on the offensive side of the ball. There's coaches that have come, but I want to see his scheme proliferate. Baker, defensive line, on January 31st. He's going to make $700,000 as well in 2025 and 2026. It was funny. I had some just Twitter coaches comment on these numbers, and they were like, "Man, it's nice to be at Texas, dude." Because all the coaches are getting paid for real. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, it's so nuts, Connor. I can recall being a kid when Fred Akers was the coach at Texas. I was a little kid.
Yeah,
but his kids went to McCallum High School. I knew where his house was. It was a nice house in Northwest, nothing remarkable. He lived next to a podiatrist and a lawyer. There was no 18-acre estate out on Lake Austin.
Yeah, I was going to say in Westlake.
Some mansion on Terrytown with a guest house that's bigger than most people's house. I mean, the head coach was not so highly paid that they weren't a member of a part of the community. Their kids went to public school. That's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, being an assistant at Texas, you made $85,000 a year or whatever. Good job, good employment there at the time, but nothing remarkable. I mean, that's real money right there, man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Coach Jackson, wide receivers. He is going to earn $650,000 this year. Becton was able to sign multiple extensions this offseason. So got extended. NFL comes knocking again, raises the extension, turns it down, takes a double extension. Pretty nice. On January 24th, he signed a deal that would have kept him at Texas through 2027 and paid him $700,000 for the upcoming season, with his salary increasing by $50K each year. And Becton's done a great job, man. And it's oversaid, but those strength and conditioning coaches are managing huge staffs, often nutrition staffs. These guys are for real manager. We think of them just yelling at someone to get their bench press up. That's not what this is. They design full programs. This is evidence-based stuff he's doing. They manage a ton of staff. And on top of that, you're seeing our athletes are developing. They're showing out at the combine. Becton's done an awesome job, and they do a lot more than just, yell at players to get their max up. It's important. So
over the course of the year, they have the most contact with the players of any coach.
1,000%. And they basically set the true culture and the grit of a team.
Yep.
And Becton, he runs a tough program. I mean, you hear players say it all the time, especially ones that have transferred. They're like, Texas's program is tough. We also run a lot more than other people do, because I think Becton both sees the value of running physically, but understands that running is also a very mental exercise. And if you feel like you're going to pass out on the field, it's a good way to get to get people mentally strong. All right, then we have We're continuing. After the NFL game calling, Texas raised his salary and a new contract signed on February 14th. Keeps him in Austin for the same amount of time, but pays him $850K. The salary raises by $25K over the life of the contract. So shout out Becton, earning his money. Brandon Harris, now GM in the new world of college football.
Wow.
Gets paid 600,000 racks per year through the end of the 2026 season. Man, our coaches get paid, man. And then before departing to the Saints, Terry Joseph was going to make $850K.
Well, to give you a comparator, the Bowling Green head coach that just went to the NFL, he was making about $600,000 a year.
Yeah. Remember when Choate was like a head coach and he made more as our linebackers coach than it is as
right. So I mean, my point is, we've got non-coordinators doubling up a MAC head coach's salary.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Does SNC coach have as intense of a job as on-field coaches in the sense of the calendar, like y'all were discussing at the beginning of the season? I think you probably get nights off more than like other coaches recruiting, but day to day, I mean, he's running all the workout. That's a crazy intense job.
He's got to plan some stuff, but frankly, he's not doing film sessions till 2 a.m. Right.
Yep. And he's not having to drive to small town in South Texas,
catch a Friday night game and then drive back home. But
so I think he has a more traditional schedule, but it's incredibly consistent. Too. All right.
One sign of lazy SNC coaches. This may apply to some that we had in the past, Connor. May or may not. You decide. To make programming easy, we had a strength and conditioning coach who would just keep 225 on the bar. And the idea was whatever your strength level, just do it as many times as you could. Yeah. So you had weak guys lifting like 5 reps for strength. Yeah. And then you had your strongest guys just doing like 18 reps or 20 reps. I mean,
but that ends up targeting hypertrophy more than it targets strength.
It's the dumbest possible programming.
Yeah.
Like, you don't raise your strength level if you're already really strong by doing a lot of reps. Like that doesn't work.
You know who else you can tell, or a way you can tell just a dumb meathead coach, where everyone looks like bowling balls. They're not crafting bodies for positions. It's just they're trying to make every position look like a bodybuilder. It's like you're not crafting position-specific athletes. Everyone's going to gain muscle, but if you're trying to make everyone look like a linebacker, that's not the goal either.
I'll never forget a friend of mine telling me that he was at a clinic with a former strength and conditioning coach at Texas who said, I don't have my DBs squat because when on a football field, do you ever grab a receiver, put them on your back and squat down?
Yeah.
That's
taking functional training to the dumb conclusion.
That's remarkable. That demonstrates a baseline level of you shouldn't be working in a Gold's Gym, but because you got in on the strength and conditioning at the college level and you look a certain way and talk a certain way,
coaches that hire you, they really don't know.
They don't know.
So as long as you can throw a bunch of fancy words and science adjacent terms around and you can trick a coach, all they know is do they get bigger faster? Yeah. So that's the funny world too of any trainers, man. Half of them are just making stuff up. Becton's not one of them, man. I remember whenever he started with us, his whole concept was look, we're actually going to tear it down and we're going to start from this new base. In year 1, we did not look athletic, man. And then year 2, you started to see a difference. Year 3, now I don't have that worry.
That is the tough part though of the portal and the impatience and the time schedules of college football now is you've got to get people to buy into that extra money year. And Texas has done a good job with Alfred Collins, with Vernon Broughton.
Yeah.
We sold them on, hey, man, you're almost there. Do you have any doubt that if Alfred Collins had gone pro last year that he would have gotten drafted?
Yeah, he would have gotten drafted.
But in the 5th?
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between getting drafted in the 5th and the high 2nd round.
Yeah, maximizing.
And not only your initial contract, but sticking in the NFL. Like, people forget, like, you're not guaranteed to stick around. If you're a 5th rounder, they don't have any investment in you. If you show up to camp and get your ass beat, they're not going to be like, well, let's invest for 2 years. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Go figure it out on someone else's dime.
Is Becton doing anything in nutrition as well? I don't know the exact structure of Texas, but yeah, generally the S&C guys, they're overseeing all of it. So nutrition, working out, they're like the director of sports science. We call them S&C, but they're generally not that.
I think my understanding is we eat chicken fingers for all of our meals.
We don't. You can watch like Content is King video showing our nutrition stuff. But yeah, generally like they're overseeing all of that, and they have a whole staff. It's a really involved job. Like
well, it's funny. People think of nutrition as you got to get the fat guys in shape. Sometimes it's getting the skinny guys to eat.
Yeah, 100%.
Because a lot of DBs or wide receivers coming out of high school, like they love their 12-pack.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, dude, that's cool, but you're 155 pounds and we need you at 185. Like,
you're trying to go to the NFL. They're going to ding you if you don't.
Like, yeah, you can't go and just like graze for dinner and then go, play basketball for 3 hours. Like, you need to eat a meal.
Seems like we have soft tissue injuries much less frequently now than Becton's first year or two. Did Becton change something? I don't know empirically if that's the case. I think I don't know if he changed something or it was a whole process. Like we said, he stripped it down in year 1 and went with much more like I don't remember if it was functional training or whatever he called it, but it was more movement based. He wanted people to be athletes and not because remember Yancey had just everybody looking like this. Like Jake Smith, like we have a slot receiver that's like can't move well, So it's like he kind of like stripped it down. So maybe that's why early on there are more injuries, but also there's a luck factor in that as well. Who gets injured and who doesn't.
There is. The thing with Yancey was I actually thought he did some really good things, but he didn't understand the idea of a targeted body weight.
Yeah.
So when you're reading off-season stuff of like Keontae Ingram's up almost 240 pounds.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, man, that's not his frame. So it's good that you got Keontae from 185 to 210, 215. That's good.
Yeah.
Past that, there's diminishing returns.
Right. That's what I was saying. You have to be.
He's stronger, but now he's not as dexterous. He's more prone to injury because he's not carrying good weight for his frame.
Yeah.
So there's something to that. But generally speaking, you want to drive people's body weights up until the point of diminishing returns. Because as you drive body weight up, you get more strength, you get more armor, you actually get more durable, right? But there's a point of diminishing returns. I mean, there's a reason Mike Tyson in his prime didn't fight at 255.
Yeah.
He was 218. That was the best weight for him.
Yeah, you got to find the end. David Keith Williams says the term science seems to be very significant in Becton's approach to strength development. I listened to him in an interview of him during the playoffs, and he seemed very cerebral as well as physical. He's an interesting blend of evidence-based, a lot of data. Everything is numbers. They look at everything after practice. They see what you ran. They see your maxes. They see how to optimize you. And but also he has the old school mentality too of like, you're going to run. So it's like he's a good mix of the old and the new school.
I think that's right. I think there's also just some common sense. Like, well, the data doesn't show. And it's like, hey, man, a player who squats 500 is better on the football field than a guy who squats 350. I promise you.
Yeah.
Ask Malik Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you operate differently when you're really strong and you've got a really strong base. And then drive that up till you reach the point of diminishing returns. Like that's what a lot of strength and conditioning training is. There's guys that are easy gainers. They're just freaks. Mm-hmm. And so they can squat 650 just staying on your regular workouts. But the minute you hit a wall and then driving your squat from 575 to 600 would take all these specialized workouts, stop that, hold your squat there and go do other stuff that makes you a better all-around football player. So that's what people don't understand is they waste a lot of time trying to drive someone from 575 to 600, or they say, I don't like squats because you don't squat anyone on a football field. And it's like, the purpose of that is to build generalized strength. It's not, people who get into all this specificity stuff, that's how you end up standing like an idiot on a Bosu ball and the guy's hitting you with foam, pool. What's the pool things? What are those called?
Pool noodles.
Pool noodles. A guy's hitting you with a pool noodle and you're standing on a Bosu ball with one hand catching tennis balls. It's like, oh my God, this is functional training. It's like, no, it's not. You just wasted an hour. You're an idiot.
You see it with a lot of basketball players. They do a lot of fun.
Basketball players do idiotic stuff constantly.
I think because they work out professionally, they get bored. So they just want to do like a balance.
Also, well, there's an element of these are genetic freaks.
Mm-hmm.
So like these are guys who, if they did push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups, they would have freaky bodies, right?
Yeah.
So, like go look at an old picture of Jim Brown.
Yeah.
With his shirt off. He's not doing bench. He ain't really lifting.
Well, Herschel Walker literally was just doing push-ups.
Yeah.
It's insane.
These guys are not us. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's the point.
Well, speak for yourself, Paul.
Oh, sorry, Connor. I do apologize.
Yeah. I mean, I can easily get there. I'm in a bulking phase right now. But I will shred.
A dirty bulk or a clean bulk? That's what the
dirty bulk. I'm on my Sam Solik.
That's what the bros like to differentiate on Twitter.
Yeah, it is important apparently to them. All right, Mark Orfei. We don't know his contract. We don't know Dwayne's or Chad Scott's because they're new.
I bet it's good.
I bet they got paid. Jeff Banks, Koa, and Johnny Nansen. So Banks got an extension through 2027. Wow, I always forget he's a millionaire. His 2025 salary of $1.2 million and his 2026 pay of $1.25 million did not change, but he did get an additional year in 2027 tacked on to the end of his deal. He'll receive $1.3 million that year. Nansen went from $925,000 to $1.1 million.
Holy cow!
Yeah, he'll make 1.2 in 2026. Man, our staff is crazy paid. And then
look at Kwiatkowski.
Yeah,
$2 million a year as a DC. Like he's making more than about half the head coaches.
Yeah.
In FBS football.
Yeah.
That's wild. Sark's making 11.
Yeah, I think 11 and a half.
That's wild. Like that is just crazy.
Well, it's like, it's not even crazy. Like it'd be crazy if it was all top end, but it's like down to like our second assistants are still like a minimum making $600K.
Yeah.
And so you guys get it. Yep. It's just a matter of time when I hit the gym. So I've been bulking. I've been bulking for about I've been on a 31-year bulk. But I'm about to go to a real shred era.
Epoch.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, man. Shout out to Texas. Coaches getting paid. You see a lot of that, but it's like, man, how much did they pay Joseph? He just wanted to go to the Saints, but like, what they offer you, man?
I bet it was not. I bet it was not more.
Yeah, I bet it was just the NFL and he gets to go back to Louisiana.
I bet they matched it or maybe a little less even.
Yeah.
Louisiana ain't real expensive either.
Yeah. But man, that's cool.
It's wild. I mean, so let's talk about this critically. Are there downsides to paying a 28-year-old assistant $700,000? Like, are you potentially depriving some of these guys of the hunger, or is that just going to be innate anyway, irrespective? Like the salary is just a way of keeping score. Like, so someone like Bill Belichick, he doesn't mind being rich and getting all the money. It's not primary in his life. And I think it's just a way of keeping score. Like he doesn't, like I think Tom Brady's the same. I think he's got other goals and the money's just, yeah, my money's fine. Great. I've got other stuff going on. But I do think there's some guys, I wonder if it blunts your ambition to get paid that much when you're 28 years old.
I think it's relative to what you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
So if you're making $600K and everyone ahead of you or everyone around you is making $800 to $1.2 million, you still feel like you're not there. Now, if you're making $600K surrounded by guys, living on their friends' couches and stuff like that, then yeah, you feel like you make it. But I think it's also your environment, right? Like if you're Milwee making $700,000, yeah, but you're still the lowest paid of that situation. So it's like, I think too, it matters relatively. And then once you make money, it's like your goal, like you said, that number, like I've seen it with people that I know that are wealthier, like at first it's about the number, but then once you get used and acclimated to that life and making that much money and becomes normal, then you start switching to more like abstract things, like it goes to prestige or like being the best, or something like that. So I think it also switches, like you find ways to motivate yourself past the money once you've hurdled the money, the certain amount you need to.
Well, if I know from just like Silicon Valley guys, but also I've got a good friend who works in private equity, and a lot of these guys go through a finding meaning phase. It's usually in their late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
And it's like when they have their first divorce, and then they end up with like gurus and like,
like some weird philosophy they've adopted.
Yes. And then they write a book, and it's like about energy and like
But it shows you like that is a process. Like once you get the money and you realize, oh, I am not happy and I am not at peace. Now it's like, now you have to stay on that hedonistic treadmill.
Well, and there's funny. And then there's the other track of, I'm rich, but I don't own a plane. Like, sure, I fly private, but I have to contract with NetJets or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, the next phase is I need to have my own plane so I can jet up to Aspen whenever I feel like it, because I've got a pilot on standby, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's always another, like Alexander the Great never stopped.
Yeah.
His troops are like, yay, we conquered Persia, 6 years, amazing. Look, we've quadrupled our kingdom from Macedonia and Greece. And Alexander's like, we're going to keep going. And we're going to fight everyone on the planet and defeat them, because that's what drives me. And his men literally mutinied.
Yeah.
In India after walking from Greece. So, I mean, there's some people that are driven by something else, and some of them make history, and some of them thwart history.
Yeah, I think it's your surroundings. Like you worry about it with like 18-year-olds, that like make huge sums, but I don't worry about it in like the professional ranks that much, especially if you're surrounded by other high income earners or highly driven individuals. I think that keeps you on the competitive track. Some are going to burn out or fall out, but I don't worry. It seems to be mostly a problem whenever you're the 18-year-old that makes X amount of money, and then you go back to Dallas and all your friends are just being 18.
Yeah.
That's where you seem like you get into trouble. But
there's always the sense that victory can defeat you.
Yeah.
Right. You win, and then that makes you soft, and you lose your drive, and suddenly you're not quite the hard guy. I mean, it's hard to be Floyd Mayweather, right? Yeah. He's sleeping on silk sheets, and he still gets out and does his road work.
Yeah.
That's very rare. Most boxers are James Buster Douglas. You beat the crap out of Mike Tyson in Tokyo on the greatest performance. You're the most fit you've ever been in your whole life. And then the next fight, you show up 30 pounds overweight, and Evander Holyfield beats the crap out of you. That's most people. Most people are not Floyd Mayweather, just like still driven by that thing.
It's the McGregor thing. Becomes king of the world and all this business, and then Dana White's like, there's no way it doesn't change you. The drive. He has the performative drive. He'll do the talking and stuff, but as far as being in the ring fighting, the money seemed to be a differentiator there.
Who the F is that guy?
Yeah. He has some legendary quotes, man, and he still knows how to perform. But yeah, he's not performing in the octagon. But it is crazy. There can't be a higher paid staff than us, right?
I mean, there might be some comparable, but yeah, I don't think anyone's making more.
Like Ohio State maybe, or Georgia, but when you actually look at the numbers, you're like, damn. Shout out to Texas. And revenue sharing is also going to be interesting whenever we are able to pay the players directly too. We're going to have to like change our game.
Doesn't that start this year?
Yeah, like we're gonna have to change, dude. We're gonna have to become like NFL style guys. We're like, well, what? How does this affect the cap? Like all this stuff that we're not used to, like in the college game. We're gonna have to go. I'm gonna start paying attention to how the pros cover some of these things, because I'm not from a salary cap world. It's college football, It's gonna be interesting how we have to think about it. We'll see.
We shall.
Paul, I got you out of here. Perfect. Nailed it.
Nice.
Yeah, good stuff.
You're just that good, man.
Paul, thanks for hanging out. Fans.
Hey, thanks to the chat. You guys are awesome as always.
Yeah, that was some good engagement, guys. We appreciate it.
Go buy some stuff at Academy. And go get a mortgage with Gabe.
Absolutely. And then stay tuned for recruiting intel coming on this afternoon, guys. You can know what's going on in the fun world of recruiting. Peace out.